Hi, my name is Amy Berry. Good evening. This is my oral presentation for History of Civilization 2. Today I'm going to be presenting on the Enlightenment, more specifically the causes of the Enlightenment as well as the consequences of the Enlightenment. I do want to start with giving the basics of what the Enlightenment was. The Enlightenment was a movement that was begun by a loosely knit group of writers and scholars who believed that human beings should apply a critical reasoning to every problem that they faced in life. It emerged in the 1690s as a secular, scientific, and critical attitude that scrutinized basically everything. It focused on everything from religious groups, the government structure of Europe, even society's view on women and what their roles were in it, as well as the power of absolutism during the rule of Louis XIV. This time was the beginning of that push for a more individualistic thinking among all people. The period of Enlightenment was coming just a few years after the end of the Protestant Reformation, which was started by Martin Luther, and had caused people to look again at their religion and to second guess, in a sense, what they had always been told. They were told one thing by the church, and it was basically law. There were no other options, and you followed what there was, unless you wanted to be punished. And that's the way it was until the Reformation started. With people coming out of the woodwork, willing to fight for their religious freedom and stand up for what they wanted, it opened so many options to the people to find their own beliefs, and this helped them to gain the individualistic approach that helped lead into the Enlightenment. I found three central ideas of enlightenment that I want to talk about. The first one being reason, which is the method of natural science and how it could be used to examine and understand all aspects of life. Everything was to be submitted to rationalism. This was the most important and original idea that came out of the Enlightenment at the time. Second one that I want to talk about would be the scientific method. Not the scientific method as we know today, but the scientific method was at the time was capable of discovering the laws of human society as well as those of nature. So it was used not only for science but for human society as well. The third one I want to talk about is progress, which was the overall goal of the Enlightenment. Basically, it was thinkers wanted to create better societies and better people by discarding outdated traditions and embracing what was known as rationalism. During this time, you had men like Pierre Bailly, who helped lead the movement based on his insistence for a rational investigation into the world of religions. At the time, there was no state in Europe that offered complete tolerance for all religions, and Bailey focused on challenging the authority behind that. With all of the questioning of religious authorities that came into the Enlightenment from the Protestant Reformation, and were thought to be even more of a point by Bailey, religious leaders began to worry about their power and their hold on the government. He also helped to push forward the rise of skepticism, which, if you don't know, skepticism is a philosophy based on the idea that nothing can ever be known for certain. Skepticism grew due to the expanding knowledge of the world outside of Europe. Writers began writing about the contrast between different societies and cultures, which helped show Europeans even more even more than they'd already known, that there were other ways of life and ways of doing things, or ways to live, because it showed just how much customs varied between places. Empress Catherine of Russia, or better known as Catherine the Great, even wrote to Voltaire, one of the leading writers of the Enlightenment in Europe, praising him for fighting what she thought to be ignorance of mankind. Her writing to him was proof that the Enlightenment began spreading worldwide. So the Enlightenment was happening because of people noticing that other things were happening outside of Europe, whereas also other countries outside of Europe were taking from the Enlightenment because of their progress. So everybody was kind of helping everybody. Mathematics and science were also becoming more fashionable topics in society, and it was becoming more common for even the lower classes of the class structure to have some knowledge of these subjects. The writers and scholars during the time revered the new scientists and the new discoveries that were continuing to come, which with expanding the world of science. While all of the growth and the people and their knowledge kept expanding, the Catholic Church was still trying very hard to gain control of what they called a situation by adding the works of many writers and scholars and even the mathematicians and scientists to their index, which for them was a list of forbidden books or works. This was to try and keep the people that were still within the Catholic Church from leaving for the new ideals that were coming out, like many had already done. The Catholic Church was also still having trouble even recognizing the other forms of religion. They didn't want to admit that they were coming out and that they were gaining followers and believers. All of these religions did come out of the Protestant Reformation, such as Protestantism itself, as well as Calvinism, and the rise of atheists and deists, who were people who believed in God but gave him no active role in what was considered to be earthly matters. Thanks to all of these developments during the Enlightenment, we were able to gain quite a bit. Some of the main consequences of the Enlightenment were based in what I classified as 3 categories. The first one that I labeled, I guess, would be education, which was the Enlightenment led to the belief in educating people. There wasn't, before the Enlightenment, the heads of the church were the only people that had any form of education, really. It was, you went to them if you needed to know something. You had no access to knowledge or education yourself. It also led to the discovery of things like gravity through Isaac Newton's research and other impressive scientific and mathematical discoveries from not only him and other scientists. People became more literate also due to the printing press being able to produce more books at a quicker pace. This went to schools and universities where people were encouraged and revered for being able to read more and more. The second one that I want to talk about would be politics. The Enlightenment helped end the privileges of nobility in many countries and led to the formation of many democratic nations. Slavery was also starting to be seen as, in a sense, barbaric towards the end of the Enlightenment, which is ironic because it was one of the causes of the Enlightenment, because of the growing consumer economy, which was able to grow at such a rapid pace because of slave labor. It also helped to gain separation of powers, which was the belief developed by Montesquieu, I hope that's right, which was the political power in society should be dispersed and shared rather than focused in a single individual or institution, meaning that the church and government were separate. Before then, the government had basically been run by religious leaders. Also during this time, colonies in America began, and other places, began seeking their own independence from their home countries. They wanted to have their own say in their own government, rather than having to follow the rules and the ways of life of people basically across the ocean. The third category that I found and wanted to talk about was the questioning nature of people. People began to question their religions, their governments, their educations, everything. This gave people the opportunity to branch out and form their own opinions. I put this in consequences as well as in causes, because without the questioning, without that people questioning things, the Enlightenment wouldn't have started, but it also wouldn't have continued at the pace that it did if people had stopped midway. And it also wouldn't have continued to help lead out into other things if they hadn't continued after what is called the end of the Enlightenment. This questioning attitude that was gained from the Enlightenment helped continue to push that individualistic attitude forward and out of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment also helped lead to future historical events that helped shape the world even more than it would have been without it. It helped lead to the Industrial Revolution. It influenced the American and French revolutions, and it also helped capitalism become the new economy theory, with so many different theories and ways of life and governmental structures coming out. There were so many different ways and options that people could have gone and done, and that was basically what the Enlightenment was. It was just this chance for people to learn more, to change their mind, to find different beliefs and gain different opinions, and it helped structure what we know today as society. If we wouldn't be in the same spot that we are in right now if it hadn't been for what the Enlightenment accomplished. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you found this video informative, and I hope it was easy for you guys to follow along, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.